As the sun rises over the railway and the sun rises over New South Wales, with the lockdown now over, today I can finally buy new things for the railway. But first, so today's mission is to finally finish off the planting. So we're going to get plants 4. And some stones to go over the top of both. So that will just leave a small grass strip to get to the other side, and a small grass strip here to the side, and then plants will be done. It's very exciting. Next stop, Bunnings. Let's see if this angle works. I have a feeling probably the camera is going to fall over. So I thought I would take this opportunity of I still don't know why I look behind me. I have a reversing camera in this car. But anyway, you don't need to know that. I thought I'd take this opportunity to discuss through the wheels of the steering wheel the difference between scale and gauge, or as I called it in last week's video, scage and gale. So my railway has 45mm gauge. So that is the distance between the rails, and that is the same on mini railways as it is on big railways that you get on to go to work, etc. They have a gauge, which is the distance between the track. So mine is 45mm. Now, that is called gauge 1, I believe. I think there is also gauge 2, which potentially runs on the same size track, but runs to a different scale. In the UK where I'm from originally, Hornby, where do I live? Hornsby. So Hornby trains uses 00 scale, which I believe is 16mm between the tracks. There is also HO, which is literally half O, and then there is O, and there are other gauges as well. NZT, I've had an N gauge and I've had some T gauge trains in my time, which are very, very small. But they have, O gauge is 32mm between the tracks, HO is 16, I think OO is even smaller actually, but whatever, we're getting off track here. So 45mm is the big one. Now G scale is, I believe, a scale of 1 to 22.5, which means that for every one whatever on the little mini version, there will be 22.5 in the big version. I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments below if I am wrong. Now, in last week's video, I also said that if I did this again, I would probably model in the 32mm. Now, that was slightly wrong. What I meant was I would probably model on 32mm wide tracks, so a gauge of 32mm, but then would probably model on 16mm to a foot scale, which in the UK works quite well. So the models look similar to what you would expect on a G scale railway, but the wheels are closer together. And actually those IP engineering trains I've got and the Dora both have the ability to have 32mm or 45mm gauge. The reason I did not do that in Australia is because Australia does not have a great history of narrow gauge railways. If you've ever been to Australia and you have looked at the tracks wow. And we're back. The tracks for the big trains are much further apart, or look much further apart, than they do in Britain, and so they don't really have any narrow gauge, and so the idea of narrow gauge modelling, it's not really here. Whereas in the UK there's lots of old mining railways or things like that that do have narrow gauge. Anyway, and that's more of the look that I'm going for on my railway, but I'm having to do it on 45mm tracks. Anyway, it's enough of me waffling. A brief chat on scale versus gauge. We have returned from Bunnings. It is now somewhat later in the day, and you may have noticed that the fence has changed colour. That is why it is later in the day. In other news, I bought a spray gun. That's much better than painting with a brush. I want to paint everything now. But anyway, I'm going to dig holes to fit in these the final two plants. So here we have. I think it's good. I'm going to alternate the red colour so it goes through. Should have alternated these ones too. Didn't really think about that when I was planting, but like everything in this railway, I didn't really think about it. So I'm going to dig some holes and plant the things, and then I've got some of this Tuscan path, which I'm going to use to put on top of these, but then I think I'm going to use them also to fill in the middle here, to make that look a bit better. Yes, so now time for digging, and it is a beautiful blue day. Okay, enough frivolity. Planting is done.
Mummy?
Lila is in her new pram. I did not quite have enough stones to go around the whole of the circuit here. But I did what I could. A man has to make do. We have sun tomorrow, which is Monday, and then apparently rain for the rest of the week. So I gave these two bad boys a bit of a watering in, and hopefully, or maybe they're bad girls. Are plants boys or girls? Oh, I don't know, that's a question. And do not think I just threw away the grass that I dug out. No, 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 it is here to help grass up this bank, which I think is wishful thinking because it's underneath that epic tree. So yes, that is the end for the week. No trains running this week again. I need to start actually running some trains rather than just building the railway. Otherwise people will think that I'm not really into trains. Next week maybe some trains. Anyway, but I did give you the difference, or a bit of a guide between gale and skage, which I'm going to call them from now on rather than gauge and scale. And you saw a lovely new fence. Well, old fence, new colour. So yes, the railway progresses on. Thank you for watching. And remember, choo choo.